What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Harry the Horse Barbecue, and today we are going to do a little test of an old school brisket versus a new school brisket. So keep it locked right now.
Harry the Horse Barbecue.
Now, you might be a little confused and be saying, what's an old school brisket? What's a new school brisket? Well, back in the day, German and Czech immigrants, when they came to Texas, they opened up these little meat markets, and smoking was actually a way to preserve the meat for basically whatever didn't sell in their market that day. If they were able to smoke it, then they'd be able to keep it on the shelves for a longer period of time. So brisket was always an undesirable cut, and it's been tough, takes a long time to cook, to make tender. And back in the day, no one used to even trim briskets. They used to throw it on and say, yeah, let it go until it turns black, take it off, and that was it. By old school brisket, I mean, I'm not gonna wrap this thing. We're going plain salt and pepper, and we are not gonna wrap the entire time. And I know there's been videos on the internet for an unwrapped brisket versus a wrapped brisket versus a foil brisket or butcher paper brisket, whatever the case is. I've never made an unwrapped brisket. That's the truth. By new school we mean the trend nowadays. The tallow in your butcher paper wrap. Is it better the old school way where you just throw it on the fire and let it go? You get some textural differences? Or is it better off with the beef tallow in the wrap? Getting that nice glossy finish, juicy bite with the flat, juicy bite in the point. Everything is completely moist. Which one's better? We're gonna find out. Now, what I've got are 2 full packer briskets that I got from my local grocery store. Sourcing brisket is super hard, unless you live in literally beef country. I went to a series of places. A lot of them only sell brisket flats, and I don't want to cook just the flat. You could source meat online, and that's great. You can go to a butcher, that's great. I've done both of those. The quality is amazing. However, the bank account is not. I'm not gonna keep paying $150 to $200 every time I wanna cook a brisket. So sometimes we gotta go the cheaper route and cook whatever you can find. I've got 2 Greater Omaha briskets. That's the type of meat that my grocery store sells. And I'm not thrilled about it, but it is what it is. At least I found a full brisket. The grade of this beef is choice, at least when I asked the butcher. That's what they said. I've got a 10.5 pound brisket, kind of small, and a 13.5 pound brisket, a little bit bigger. So what we're gonna do, since we have 2 different size briskets, our 10.5 pound brisket is gonna be the one that we don't wrap. It's smaller, so therefore it should cook at the same rate as the larger brisket when we wrap it. So that's my line of thinking. The smaller one, if I don't wrap, it should take just about the same amount of time to cook as the larger one when wrapped. So we're gonna open these up and get to trimming. We're gonna bring you guys in for it. Take a closer look. Here's our 10.5 pound brisket. You can see it's cut weird, sort of on this end here, and actually just feeling this brisket, this is like hard as a rock on this corner. So a couple of pieces I'm already gonna have to amend. All right, you can see we have the big decal of fat right in here. Some of this stuff here, we got a little bit of marbling throughout the flat. Not terribly mad at it. So my first cut, you guys seen us trim briskets on this channel, so we're just gonna give you the highlights here. Now we're gonna set this aside. You can see I skinned it in a couple places. The fat is very irregular across the top. It's bound to happen. Probably take a little bit more out of here. Yeah, this would have been really fatty. And on to the brisket we're going to wrap. And same deal here. All right, y'all, just a couple updates. One, after opening up and trimming those briskets, I am not pleased. The quality of the meat, as you can see maybe with some of the trimming, not much marbling. The flat, very bare. Even parts of the point that got trimmed off, pretty bare. And what I mean by bare is that there's very limited marbling throughout the meat, which is disappointing. Two, battery died, and I seasoned the two briskets the same way I season all my briskets that you guys have seen. I go down with a layer of Q glue just to make it tacky, and then a 50-50 mix of salt and pepper, both sides. I seasoned those last night at about maybe 9:30 p.m. They went in the refrigerator overnight until about 5:30 this morning. Briskets went on at about 5:30. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm struggling with the fire management. Not in terms of skill. The wood shipment I received is wet. The wood has been sitting out. We had a hurricane hit New York recently. The wood's been sitting out uncovered, unfortunately. So I've been struggling with the fire. You know, I've been dealing with the fire since about 4 a.m. I started actually with a chimney of charcoal so I could have a really hot base to get started with. And it's been struggling. It's been limping along between 225 and 250. Now, at this point, we are about 4 hours into the cook, and I'm able to get it to the 265 range, which is what I ideally want to start my briskets around, 250 to 265, somewhere in that range. We're at the 4-hour mark now. We're going to spritz these about every hour until they're developing a nice bark. You can see the smoker is smoky. The water content of the wood is a little too high. We're still burning a pretty clean fire. It's just smoky because of the water content in the wood. But the temperatures are just about where we want them now. Hopefully we can maintain throughout the remainder of the cook. My firebox is covered with wood because I gotta preheat this wood before I throw it on. But let's take a look at the briskets. All right guys, 4 hours in, we're gonna take a look at these briskets, spritz them down a bit, see what they're looking like. Let's get after it. Not looking too bad. There's some nice red mahogany color going on, a little bit of fat render starting. Now, my goal here is to turn something what I think is horrible in terms of meat quality. I'm gonna aim to make this as great as possible with a little bit of time, care, and patience, and a little bit of beef tallow, but let's give it a spritz down. Edges looking a little dry. Nothing's really burning though, which I'm pretty happy about. We don't want anything to really dry out during this cook. Just spritzing with apple cider vinegar and water. What we're gonna do, we're gonna close her up and we're going to come back in every hour and spritz. I will bring you guys back maybe as these get close to wrapping, and then I'll bring you back when we wrap. And then hopefully it's a wrap for these briskets. All right, that's a wrap here. Since the wood is so wet, I've had to use some just like wood chunks from the hardware store to kind of just ignite a flame to help my other wood catch. So that's what we gotta do. All right, y'all. A shirt change later because it's so incredibly hot outside. And 8 hours into this cook, let's see what we got. We've been spritzing every hour. Let's take a look at our 2 briskets. Oh my. So these briskets are looking really nice. The bark is setting up really nice on them. When you press on the fat, it's not quite giving the way I want it to. It gives in some areas and it's kind of still bouncy in some other areas. For both briskets, by the 9-hour mark, we should be able to wrap the one brisket, and we're just gonna keep letting the other one rock. Just around the edges that are looking a little dark. We'll bring you guys back when we get to wrapping. All right, y'all, 9 hours in, let's check on these bad boy briskets. Yes, that is an alliteration for you. Sorry, the shovel hasn't left my hand from managing this fire. Here we go. Where's my other glove? I got one. Where's the other one? Found it. It's all good. All right, let's check it out. All right, looking nice and dark. Dadgum, that's hot. The brisket that we're gonna wrap, the fat is actually giving way, which feels really nice, which actually is kind of perfect because we wanna wrap. It's also further back in the cooker, towards the back end of the cooker, and it's just naturally hotter over there. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get ready to wrap. I'm gonna pull this brisket that we're gonna wrap. And I'm gonna move the other brisket to the back of the cooker, let it keep going. I will put the wrapped brisket back on the cooker and just kind of deplete the rest of my wood that I've cut. And then from there, I'm gonna take them both and I'm gonna put them in the oven. So it might be after about 10 hours, we'll put them in the oven. All right, y'all, here we have our 2 finished briskets. The one to my right is the one we're calling the old school brisket.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boy.
Kicking it old school, eh. Anyway, old school brisket. Completely naked the entire time. And by naked, I mean we didn't wrap it at all. To my left, we have the new school brisket. You know, it's a new kid on the block. He's like, yo, what up, old school? What you trying to do around these parts? You got nothing on me. You too old for this. Are the new techniques really better than just keeping it old school? We're about to find out. Now, these briskets were on the smoker for 10 hours. I pulled them at the 10-hour mark and put them into my oven at 275. I know, we've been through the gripes, okay? However, they were only in the oven for about an hour and a half. I took them out, I let them rest for an hour and a half at room temperature, and then I put them into my Yeti cooler once they hit about 140, 150 degrees internal, and I put them in the Yeti cooler. This is a great way to hold briskets. These briskets rested about 3.5 hours up to this point. Let's get after these. I'm a little nervous because of the quality of this meat, especially for this unwrapped brisket, but I'm here to tell you guys the truth. So here we go. Old school brisket first. Feels tender. Not looking that bad. The fat is rendered really nicely on top. It's been about a month since I've had brisket. That's a lie. I had a brisket at a restaurant. Let's test the end cut. Again, remember this meat quality I was not enthused with, but here we go. The smoke flavor is so intense. I've never left a brisket unwrapped before. It is smoky and like the pepper is like spicy. It's actually very, very tasty. Like especially if you like a big punch of smoke flavor, absolutely. This kills, man. This has a time and place, that's for sure. However, it's dry. Not even gonna front, it's dry. Took a little bit to choke that down. It might just be the end cut. It's getting blasted with heat and smoke and it's notoriously dry. And the meat quality was not that great to begin with. So I chalk it up. It tastes really, really good. It's just dry. Love slicing brisket. The more you do, the better you get at it. So right in here, I kind of like to take from the dead center of the flat, just to see how we did. Because that's kind of the last place to kind of get fully cooked. It holds up nice. If you look at this, man, a lot of fat on there, a lot of pepper too, I like that. Fat's rendered well, it looks moist in there. Obviously it was holding up well. The fat kind of hangs on for the ride when we do this pull test, but little resistance there. Really tender though. Crispy around the edges. I ate a whole slice. Must be good. It's just the smoke flavor is like punching you in the face. It's crazy. All right, let's see our money shot of this brisket. Not the best looking slice, but I mean, that seam fat, look at the seam fat. Just dripping out of there.
That look good.
So this one I cooked completely unwrapped. Like I didn't wrap it at all. All right, we're gonna try the point. It's flopping real nice. Looks really juicy. Here we go. Really good smoke flavor again. The meat is just not the greatest quality, and that's my biggest gripe here, is that it's cooked to tenderness, but it's not falling apart. If you gave this to me, I'd be happy with that. I wouldn't be super thrilled though. All right, y'all, let's get into our beef tallow wrapped brisket. Let's see how we did here. Softer right off the bat. So much softer from that beef tallow. The end cut is way more moist. Not even close. The smoke flavor is dialed down. It is a bit dialed down. Not as harsh on the bite. All right, let's get into one of these dead center flat slices. That pulls way easier. Let's take a look how we did here. It looks great. I mean, nothing about this is bad. It looks really nice in there. That seam fat is rendered really nice. I'm thoroughly pleased. The fat render on the point looks nice. Let's take this back end. Here's the point of our new school brisket. It's gonna be a one biter. That's probably the best bite I've had all day. All right, guys, so final verdicts here. You saw them both. I lean a little bit towards the new school. That's just what it is. The beef tallow in the wrap, it's pretty much impossible to beat that. It softens up that bark, not as harsh of a smoke flavor. Everything is a lot juicier and more tender. It's just the way to go here. Nothing bad about this old school brisket. Man, back in the day, if you're just throwing briskets on, letting them rock until they're probe tender, or they're probes back then, I don't even know. But if you let it rock until it's tender, man, it still comes out delicious. It still comes out in a way where you can enjoy the brisket. It's not gonna be a gross or tough piece of meat at the end of the day. In my opinion, there's a time and place for both of these briskets. The new school brisket with the beef tallow, it is rich. I'm like full after having a couple of bites of both these briskets. But it is rich, so if you really wanna knock the socks off of people, then go for it. People sit down, have a slice or two, couple sides, good to go. Old school brisket, I also think there's a time and place for it. I think if people do not like smoke flavor or don't want a real punch of smoke, this is not something you should serve to them. It is delicious and it's completely different. However, again, you probably can't eat a lot of it. It's just very, very harsh in terms of the smoke flavor. Pick and choose your battles and cook your brisket the way you like to cook it. It might not even be one of these methods. You might just wrap in paper, wrap in foil. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Harry the Horse Barbecue. I have to eat 2 briskets now. I gotta share this with some people. I hope this helps you guys with cooking some briskets at home, and give these a try at home. Or do it your way and tag us on Instagram at Harry the Horse Barbecue and show us what you're cooking up. How do your briskets compare to ours? I'd love to see it. But thank you guys for tuning in to Harry the Horse Barbecue, and it's way past my dinner time. But I'm gonna keep munching on these. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Not too shabby.